Hey friends, welcome back to Creeps and Creeps. I'm Cece Delaney, and today I'm joined by my friend ButtRflY. Hello.
Excited for this.
Oh my gosh, do you want to do a little intro? Tell us about you, where we can find you.
Hi, I'm ButtRflY. I make hyperpop and electronic music, and you can find me pretty much on every social media platform. I'm on TikTok, on Instagram. We can put it in the description where to find me. Go check
Heck
out my
yeah.
music.
It's so good. You guys are not going to be disappointed. It's a full vibe. So, today we are going to be talking about the case of Alyssa Bustamante. Have you heard of that one?
No, I'm glad because I want to just raw react. You know what I mean? Just, yeah.
There's a lot to react to in this one too. When I first researched it, I was like, I'm sorry, she did what now? That's a very adult decision for a
15-year-old.
girl to make.
No. Oh
Hmm.
my gosh, I'm ready. I'm so ready.
Yeah, she's a bitty baby. So Alyssa Dalen Bustamante was born as a quote unquote teeny tiny baby to a 16-year-old Michelle Brooks and Caesar Bustamante. She was born January 28th, 1994 in Cole, Missouri, and her grandma was one of those really involved grandparents. Like, she was there to cut the cord, which to me is kind of weird because I feel like normally it's the dad, but
Yeah. Weird. She's an Aquarius. I'm like, oh no, I'm scared. An Aquarius, knowing what we're capable of, I'm scared.
Prepare yourself. Michelle, her mom, had a history of drug and alcohol addictions. Like, she was really battling through that disease. So life
Mm.
was really hard for her. It really seeped its way into Alyssa's childhood, who ended up being kind of neglected a lot because of it. Alyssa's dad is in prison. I forgot. I can tell us why he didn't cut the cord.
No way. Okay, yeah, this is really setting up the vibe, the scene.
Alyssa's grandparents, Gary and Karen Brooke, really tried to make sure that the kids, because Alyssa had one sister and two brothers, and the grandparents really felt bad for them because they're kids. They don't know any better. They didn't deserve this. And so they went out of their way to try and take care of the kids and would send money to Michelle to help buy food and pay for like bills and utilities and all of that. Meanwhile, Caesar, Alyssa's father, is in prison this whole time.
Oh wow.
Mm-hmm.
What is he in prison for?
So he actually ended up going to prison for a stabbing assault.
Oh no. Oh my God.
Yeah, that ends up being a little ironic later. When Alyssa was just 8, her parents ended up splitting up, and her mom moved the whole gang to California, which is where Gary and Karen were living. And despite the support from Michelle's parents, Gary and Karen, she unfortunately ended up relapsing. And even while they were in California, life was really hard for the whole family.
That's sad.
And so initially, when they had moved to California, Alyssa and her mom and the kids were all staying with Gary and Karen. After a while, they were like, okay, maybe Melissa's ready for some independence. Let's help them out. So they bought them a trailer and still kept it on their land. Yeah,
Keeping a close eye on him.
exactly. Which apparently didn't really matter because Melissa made really short work of turning that place into a hellhole, unfortunately.
Oh wow.
The kids were very undisciplined, and one morning Karen had stopped by to just deliver groceries and check on everything, and there was trash all over. There were holes in the walls. Really, as trashy as she could make it, it unfortunately became that way.
Yeah.
And
Was it like a hoarding situation?
yeah, essentially, and just kind of a loss of motivation, ambition, whatever. You know how addiction will just take you there.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
So she was really struggling, and she had 4 kids to deal with while struggling through this really crippling disease. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's a lot of kids. I was gonna say, you said she was a teen mom.
Mhm.
And having that many kids at that age, that's just wow, I can't even imagine.
They were doing great, and Alyssa was already displaying kind of interesting and maybe telling signs at this point. This is when she's about 12. So in 2001, Alyssa's grandparents were like, hey, Melissa, things are not going well. I think it's best if we take the kids. And so they ended up getting legal custody of all of the children and ended up moving them to St. Martin's, Missouri. There was so much happening in California that they were like, okay, maybe this can be a good fresh start, a hard reset, get the kids out of this environment that they were so comfortable in being this way. I guess at this point, too, Gary and Karen had noticed that Alyssa was kind of mentally behind the growth curve. Like,
Hmm.
she was doing shit that you would see a little kid doing, like pretending to be a giraffe in the middle of this busy store. This 12-year-old girl is just running around on all fours, just
Oh my God, yeah.
wild now, a little more than you would anticipate from a 12-year-old. Like, she really just got stunted. Long story short, they're like, let's get the fuck out of here, and moved everyone to Missouri. When they moved, they decided on just a really small town. So St. Martin's is just this tiny little close-knit rural community where everyone knows everyone. It's always the small towns, and it's always the pillars of the fucking towns that are gonna get you.
Yep, small town, everybody knows everybody, everybody's in everybody's business.
Around town, everyone saw Alyssa as this good kid. She was getting straight A's. She was super kind to all the neighborhood kids. Nobody expected this 180-degree pivot that she just suddenly bolted down.
Whoa.
Yeah. And she went to an LDS church.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
was gonna say, I've heard a lot about the LDS churches, and yeah, I've seen a lot of documentaries and stuff. I would imagine that maybe she had some interesting experiences there, but I'm not sure.
I could imagine too that it might be a lot of pressure, from where she came from, with her mom struggling the way she did. And I feel like as a kid, you don't want to travel down the same path as your parent, especially when it's such a dangerous and slippery slope. So all this pressure to like keep straight A's, and now everyone knows her for that. So she has to maintain this personality. So she started making some really fucking weird decisions at around this point. She had a friend named Jessica. She said that she noticed that Alyssa had started to self-harm, but she was one of those kids who would do it and would be like, oh my God, you guys, what a day. Oh, and like showing off.
Like cry for help, sort of, but like
Right.
also
I need
maybe,
attention.
yeah, to get attention or pity, or to maybe paint herself in a certain way that was
Yeah.
like non-threatening, maybe. I don't know.
That's kind of what I'm thinking. And keep in mind, too, this is 2007. So in 2007, I was just starting high school, I think, or was like junior high. So she's actually just a year younger than me, now that I think about it. I remember it was really big at that point to be like, I'm on antidepressants. And like, there was even that song by Evanescence, Lithium,
Like people romanticizing like mental illness. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I do think that played a big part in it, because I remember being a self-harmer who was on medication, and I was like, oh my God, you guys, I'm so tragic and beautiful like Lana Del Rey. So
Yeah.
it was definitely a different era. So from that perspective, I hate to say I get it, but I get it, because I was that kid. But she was doing a lot of that. She was kind of on her bullshit. And I'm not minimizing the fact that I do seriously think that she had a lot of stuff going on upstairs. Definitely
Absolutely.
was like actually experiencing depression, but she was really exacerbating it by showing it off.
Yeah.
So at one point, things got so bad that she ingested an entire bottle of Tylenol in an attempt to take her own life. Luckily, it did not work. During this time, she ended up spending 10 days at a psychiatric hospital in St. Martin's, and that's when they put her on her antidepressants, and shit really popped off.
But it made it worse.
Yeah. And I mean, I've also heard that, especially, I don't know if this is true, I'm not a nurse or doctor, but I've been told that if you put kids on some sort of like hormone stabilizing thing so young, it truly does stunt their growth, because like their brain's still trying to figure it out. It's still soft and squishy and smooth. So
yeah, they're very serious chemicals that alter. Yeah, it's a lot to put a child on. Absolutely.
Right. So this is the heyday of social media, like MySpace, Twitter, stuff like that. People were obsessed with that shit.
Oh yeah.
And she was a 12-year-old with a Twitter, so you know what that means. She's going to be posting some really interesting shit. A lot of her bios were like, authorities stupid and chaos and anarchy. One of her tweets said, quote, bad decisions make great stories, unquote. And another said, quote, all I want in life is a reason for all of this pain, unquote.
Oh, wow.
Clearly, she had already been through it. Like, as much as I'm joking, it's still like clearly she had a lot going on. And if she hadn't done what she had done, I'd feel really bad. But she made very adult decisions. So I'm gonna take the piss out of you just a little bit.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So on her hobbies on YouTube and MySpace, she listed, quote, killing people and, quote, cutting. She also started saying really concerning stuff to her bestie, Jessica. And she said, quote, I just wonder what it would be like just to kill someone, see the life just drain out of someone. I wonder what it would feel like. that type of power to take that away from someone, unquote.
This is like making me, there's the whole question with serial killers and things like that, the question of nature versus nurture.
Right.
Like, if the person was born with some sort of chemical imbalance or mental illness that could have caused it, or if it was their upbringing. This one, it's sounding like both almost, because you can go through a lot of things, and it might cause you to pick up certain tendencies, but that to me almost sounds like the parents were born with certain
predispositions almost, and
it's almost like she got the gene.
She was a chip off the old block. So not great and definitely alarming. And it's like, I can't blame Jessica for not being like, I'm gonna call 911, bye, because like you're a kid. It's just like,
that's scary.
Yeah, like, parents, please tell your kids that it's okay to rat their friends out if they start saying dumb shit like this.
If anyone ever said that to me, I'd be like, okay.
Bye. I'm gonna go tell my mom. Mama said I had to go home right now immediately. Bye. Things really get going on Friday, October 15th, 2009, when Alyssa and like the whole school, they had a day off. I think it was like a teacher's meeting, whatever. Doesn't matter. They just all had a day off. She spent her day digging 2 holes.
Were they body-sized holes?
Don't worry about it.
I'm terrified.
Unfortunately for her, one of these holes that may or may not be body size had too many roots to make it deep enough. So she started digging somewhere else. So initially, the speculation was she was digging just a grave. So, yes, human body sized. But all over the internet, there were a lot of speculations that because there were 2, she was planning on burying her brothers in there. But later she's like, nah, there were just too many roots and I didn't feel like fucking with it. At this point, she's got her hole. She's vibing. She's good. And Monday comes around and she's just back at school like nothing happened. Like she wasn't plotting someone's murder on Friday casually.
To do that and then go and act like nothing happened, that's just mind-boggling to me.
We find her diary later, which has some alarming stuff. Don't you worry, we have a lot more to talk about here. Life goes on as usual. She hangs out with her friends. Nobody suspects an entire thing, and she's just waiting for the perfect opportunity to pounce. And then on Wednesday, October 21st, 2009, this opportunity came. So we're going to pivot. We're going to be talking about Elizabeth Olten for a minute here. She lived with her mom named Patty and 2 siblings just 4 houses down from the Bustamante family. On Wednesday, October 21st, 2009, Elizabeth was just at home rehearsing her lines after school. She had this upcoming play. She needed to run her lines. I feel like I said running lines casually as if that's just like what kids fucking do after school. No, she had a play coming up. So she's running her lines and her friend comes knocking on the door. Whatever. This friend is Alyssa Bustamante's sister. It doesn't really mention the name of her sister, so I just keep calling her Elizabeth's friend or Alyssa's sister, but that is the same girl. It's just, I think for anonymity purposes, they kept her name out of the press. Okay. So I didn't want to dig too deep, find it, and be like, haha, doxed, bitch. She comes knocking on Elizabeth's door at around 5 p.m. So it's right before dinner. Elizabeth has just finished running her lines and doing her homework. And she's like, Mom, can I go? And her mom's like, no, like, we're about to eat dinner. But then you know how little girls are. And they're both like, please, 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 please. And they break her. She's like, fuck, fine, go. I mean, probably not like that, but that's how I'd be. So that's why I don't have kids. Yeah. But she's like, bye. But
wear down.
Yeah, exactly. As kids do. She was like, okay, yeah, go. It's fine. And just be back before 6 because that's when dinner will for sure be ready. So the girls take off and it's kind of messy as to where they go. Alyssa says that she never saw Elizabeth outside of just like in passing, like, hey, my little sister's friend, whatever. But interestingly, I don't know if I believe that because a little backstory, all of the kids were close, like the Bustamante and the Olten kids, and all of the kids would hang out. So the fact that Alyssa would typically play with Elizabeth in conjunction with her little sister, to me, it's a little weird that she's like suddenly today, she's like, no, that's her story though. So we can only really go with what we're told. Girls go out and play. 6 p.m. comes and Elizabeth isn't home. Initially, her mom's like, maybe she got distracted. Normally, Elizabeth is like super punctual. She's a really good kid, really loved. Yeah, and very respectful, like just a good kid.
So not the type to be like, F my curfew. I'm pushing the boundary.
Exactly. She should be home. by all intents and
Yeah.
purposes, like, she shouldn't be out. So her mom's like, okay, let me call up Alyssa's grandma. Maybe she's still over there and she just got distracted. Karen had just gotten home from church. I guess there was some sort of function, and Karen's like, no, Elizabeth isn't here. I just got home from church, so I don't know if she was here. She could just be walking home. But as it stands, no. I don't know where your kid is. I'm so sorry. A few minutes passes, and now it's fucking dark. A thing to know about Elizabeth is she's scared of the dark. Like, she hates that. Patty's like, there's no way my daughter would just be running the woods at night. That's not happening. So she's starting to freak out just a little bit. By 7 p.m., Elizabeth still isn't home, and Patty's like, okay, that tears it. I'm calling the cops. She decides to file a missing persons report just an hour after her missed curfew. Police pretty much rolled up right away, and because it was a small town, they realized this is probably going to be pretty difficult. So they reached out to other police departments in the area and then the fire department as well, just to get more manpower on the ground. By 10 p.m., the whole neighborhood's there. Like, everyone showed up. It was super chill of them. Hundreds of people from the community, police, every sort of like law enforcement, fire department, everyone that was available, they're out, boots on the ground looking for this little girl. As the investigators are wandering around town trying to find Elizabeth, they're talking to the other kids and kind of everyone in the area. And one name keeps coming up, and it's Alyssa. They're like, hey, Alyssa's been kind of weird lately, or hey, I know Elizabeth likes to hang out with Alyssa, or I don't know, Alyssa's being a little bit of a punk these days, maybe go check on her. So they do, thank God. So the day after Elizabeth's disappearance, the FBI questioned Alyssa, and they had gotten a search warrant to go into her room and found her diary that was hidden under her blankets in her room.
Ooh.
Oh yeah.
That's damning stuff in it.
Oh, girl, there's a lot. On Thursday, October 22nd, Alyssa had skipped school that morning, went to her 16-year-old boyfriend, Dustin's house. This is the day after Elizabeth is missing at this point. As far as anyone knows, she's just missing. And Alyssa ditched school. Now, this is not like Alyssa. She does not ditch school. Like I said, she is a good kid for all intents and purposes. I mean, like I said, she's been a little rough around the edges lately. And even her principal had noticed, like, it was kind of such a small school and a small community that he's like, where the fuck is Alyssa? She was missed at school for sure. And she was not sneaky about this ditching process, but she ditched anyway and went to her boyfriend Dustin's house. Little does Alyssa know, as she's in her interview, that the investigators had found out that she ditched school and had a little play date with her boyfriend. So as she's being interrogated, they brought Dustin's little ass in and they're interrogating him as well. It's actually Friday the 23rd that they brought all the kids in. So Wednesday, the kidnapping. Thursday, she's hanging out with Dustin, ditching school. Friday, her and Dustin are both getting interrogated, like bam, 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 super quick. Dustin, from what I gathered, was kind of like the bad kid, you know, in the neighborhood, and could have corrupted poor little baby Alyssa. And he ended up being interrogated 8 times over the next 7 days. And that did lead to a bunch of residents thinking that he did have involvement, which we'll touch on just a little bit later. I have some opinions, but we kind of have to get there. We're going to fast forward a little here. So they ended up finding Elizabeth's body. She is confirmed dead at this point, and now Dustin's being interrogated as if he does have a part in this, or at least they're pretty certain that Alyssa did. And so because he's very close to her, they're trying to figure out what he knows. They have him in a polygraph and they tell him, and there's footage, and he just straight up like throws up. He did fail his polygraph. So like there are some things where it's like that can either be seen as stress that he had something to do with it.
Yeah, that traumatized me too.
Yeah, it's really hard to judge. And like I said, there's just like a little bit more that lends credence to the fact that he could have had some involvement. Something interesting to note, when they were doing his polygraph, they asked him 3 questions that were essentially asking, did you have anything to do with her murder? All 3 he failed.
How accurate are those? Like, you know?
So that's the thing, is like they're not admissible in court. They're just used to get like an idea, essentially, of like, oh, he might be guilty. So like every time I hear like he failed his polygraph, I kind of roll my eyes because I'm like, well, he's also 16 and he's a nervous boy. Like he just found out.
It's a scary situation. Yeah.
Yeah. So like he could very well just have been panicking. Like I would panic.
I forget the medical term for this. I guess it sort of correlates, but like there's people who have like anxiety related to going to a doctor's office. And so oftentimes they're their blood pressure will read high and their
Mhm.
heart rate will read high, but it's because they're anxious and like
Yeah.
they can't like regulate it. Like it happened to my friend. They tried to say she had high blood pressure. She's like, no, it's just because I'm here. Like I usually do not have high blood pressure. Like, and then
Yeah.
she went and like did it a thing on her own. Like, you know, when you can go to like the
Like CVS
pharmacy.
and yeah.
It's just she just gets really scared to go to the doctor. And so I feel like in that scenario, I would psych myself out too. If I was getting a polygraph, I feel like you could ask me, is the sky blue? And I'd fail, you know,
Yeah.
I'd be anxious.
That's what makes it hard is like he just got done having a panic attack because he found out that his girlfriend murdered someone allegedly at the time. And now he's being potentially implicated. I'm sure he's shitting bricks, man.
And having that bad boy reputation, he's
Mhm.
probably also psyching himself out, being like, are people just gonna assume that I did this
Right.
because I've done these other little things or whatever? Yeah.
Exactly. It was also really interesting because they did bring up on the night of the murder, they saw another person with Alyssa while she's trying to get like the body buried and everything. Witnesses allege that they'd seen someone with the similar build of Dustin and wearing the same outfit that he was wearing like in his interrogation. So like shit doesn't look good, but it was never confirmed.
When did the witnesses come forward? I wonder if they came forward like in the beginning, and maybe that's why they didn't do the whole 24-hour missing person thing.
Be
Like I
that's
wonder if there was like 911 phone calls where they're like, "Hey, I saw this really weird thing." Like
That's a good point. I actually don't know. Unfortunately, at this point, like I said, they have found Elizabeth's body, and actually, the way that they went about it was super interesting. On the 23rd, written evidence came in and said that Alyssa's fucked, basically. Like she's hosed, she did it. They went into questioning, thinking that she might have knowledge, but I guess not really necessarily believing that she had anything to do with it. It seems like they kind of thought she did it, but then we're like, well, she's just a kid, so maybe not. So anyway, there's Alyssa's interrogation, and it's really interesting because you can kind of see the mood change once they start finding incriminating shit as they're doing a search warrant at Alyssa's house in tandem to her interrogation. So you can see the cops kind of like shift because they're like, shit, she definitely did it. So yeah, as they're doing this interrogation, they seize muddy clothes, two shovels, and her diary, like we talked about a little bit earlier. They also are poking around Alyssa's house just to see if they can find like these holes that people were talking about. At this point, they're doing a ping for Elizabeth's phone and they find it behind Alyssa's house where her little whole sanctuary is. You remember how I talked about Alyssa was like, oh no, we didn't really hang out. That's how they figured out that Alyssa and Elizabeth were hanging out because they could see both of their cell phones like boop, boop, boop next to each other walking into the woods. By the time Alyssa buried her, she'd turned off the phone. That's how they knew that Alyssa's full of shit. To this day, it's kind of unclear how Alyssa got her into the woods. A lot of people just think that Elizabeth was headed home and then Alyssa was like, hey, dude, I gotta show you something super cool in the forest. Like, let's go. And Elizabeth went, okay. She trusted Alyssa. They were family and friends. Why wouldn't she?
I feel like yeah, when someone's like your best friend, you're gonna be like, yeah, let's go do that.
Yeah, let's go play in the woods.
Not gonna assume that they're gonna murder you in the woods.
The amount of times I got dragged into the woods when I lived in Michigan because it's just so normal. Like, we played in the woods all the time. Are you kidding? I would never expect
Oh
my
yeah.
friend to like maim me in the forest. So they end up pulling the phone records for Elizabeth and they see that Alyssa had called her. Probably again, just to be like, dude, I gotta show you something in the forest. And then they wound up in the forest and we all know what happened. Don't forget, Alyssa's still in her interrogation. Now that investigators know what's up, they've already found Elizabeth's body. They found the diary, they found the shovel and the pants and the muddy clothes, everything. And they're like, hey, we got a few questions for you, like additional questions, Alyssa. They are like, we found her body. What do you got to say? Like, what happened? And Alyssa was like, oh, no, like I knew she was dead. We were playing in the forest and she hit her head and she died. I was just scared to say anything. And the cops say something to the extent of, when we look at her body, are we going to find a slash on her throat? And Alyssa just goes, yeah.
They'll go through and do an autopsy, and they will discover every injury on her body and the cause of death. And I understand you said she fell, and that's why she died. However, they will know from the autopsy if she was shot, if she was hit in the head, if her throat was cut. They will know all of that from the autopsy. So we need to know the truth, because at the end of the autopsy, they will know exactly how she died. So we need to know now the full truth, full disclosure right now, so it doesn't come out later that, well, I wasn't telling the full truth again. How did you kill her?
Why didn't she die?
How did she die? 9-year-old girls don't just die.
We were messing her out. Then she fell back and hit her head.
Was her throat cut?
Yeah. Oh.
Grandma?
Oh my God.
She was Grandma. I'm not going to ask any questions right now until we get.
Oh, that's not.
And at that point, her grandma is crying like she needs to get the fuck out of the room.
Alyssa
Gets arrested on the spot. Fucking obviously, hopefully. And this is when they bring up her diary. I don't know if she thought that this would help her case, but she had written some fucked up stuff in there that we actually have the quotes for. I'll read it in a sec. But in order to cover it up, or at least try to, she had like scribbled over it. But the FBI was involved. So they found a way to like basically trace it out and figure out what she said. She wrote in her diary, quote, "I just fucking killed someone. I strangled them and slit their throat and stabbed them. Now they're dead. I don't know how to feel ATM at the moment. This is amazing. As soon as you get over the, oh my God, I can't do this feeling, it's pretty enjoyable. I'm kind of nervous and shaky right now, though. Okay, gotta go to church now. LOL." Unquote.
She's writing it like it's a freaking MySpace status.
Right. Like, LOL, just take someone's life and girl boss. No.
That's absolutely nuts. That's
Yep.
just like no empathy at all.
In court, she ended up confessing to killing Elizabeth, and she said that she strangled Elizabeth before cutting her throat and stabbing her in the chest. Afterward, Alyssa buried Elizabeth's body in her hand-dug shallow grave behind their home. Interestingly, cops did look into and try to prosecute Alyssa and were unable to find DNA of Elizabeth anywhere on Alyssa's clothes, or under her fingernails. So it's almost like Alyssa wasn't there, which is kind of why people thought Dustin could be involved. She just had like the muddy clothes, the confession in her diary, stuff like that, but it's almost like she was a spectator. It's just really interesting, and I don't know what to think about that she didn't exist for all intents and purposes at the crime scene, but obviously she did it, and they were able to prosecute her because she confessed in the interrogation and in her diary. But
yeah,
that's just like a little bit of a circle back to the Dustin conspiracy, that he could have been involved
to help her cover it up.
Obviously, they were able to get Alyssa on first-degree murder, but her defense attorney cited her past with like suicide attempts and her mental health struggles, her age, which it is a fair argument. I think I kept saying she was 12. She was 15. So it's like, I see it, but someone is now dead. She might be out in 30 years after parole.
Oh, wow.
And on parole after 30 years. She is not in for very long because of her past, because of her age during this crime. There were a lot of components that went into it, but obviously Patty's fucking pissed, dude. Like, her daughter's dead because this knothead wanted to run around and play serial killer for a minute and ruin their lives forever, and should probably also have her life ruined. Like, what are you doing? So that's kind of the big controversy right now. Not that it matters, it's not getting changed, unfortunately. Yeah. And the prosecutor had actually argued for 71 years to life.
Oh, wow.
Okay. She murdered someone. Unfortunately, they didn't get it. They got the 30 years. After that, she might get on parole. So, I mean, I think at the end of the day, it just kind of comes down to see something, say something, kids. If your friend's talking about wanting to murder someone, doesn't matter if they're kidding, just say something.
Take it seriously. If you're putting yourself or others in danger, then
like, teach your kids to rat their friends out. It's fine to be a snitch. Anywho, thanks for hanging out with me.
This was fun. This was terrifying and fun. I loved it.
No, I'm glad you were here. It was super fun. It was nice to have someone to like bounce thoughts and opinions off of. If you guys are interested in cases like this, I feel like I've only been talking about women. I don't think I've done a single man killer yet. Yeah, so I might have to do that next week. But if you guys are interested in cases like this, let me know. And if there's like another similar like young person killer case or like another female killer, let me know and I will look into that and just leave it in the comment section on YouTube. Or if you're listening to this as a podcast, go to my Instagram at Creeps and Creeps Podcast and I will have a associated post for every single episode. So you just comment in the post. Like I always say, in the comment section, let's keep it constructive. There's no reason to be an asshole to one another. Like, you can have your opinion, I can have my opinion. We do not need to agree on opinions. Let's just tap the brakes, everybody. Just be chill,
Yeah.
okay? So, if you guys liked this, feel free to subscribe, like, share, comment, all of that on YouTube. If you're listening as a podcast, please feel free to follow the show, subscribe to the show, leave a rating and a review. Hopefully 5 stars. Hopefully I earned the right for 5 stars.
I got through episode 1 and I was like 5 stars.
Oh my God, yes, thank you.
And then I sent it to like a bunch of my friends and they were like, this is so my vibe. They're like, I'm gonna keep listening to this. And they were like, her voice is so soothing. I'm like, yeah, I know.
Thanks, friends. Yeah, and then again, ButtRflY, where can we find you?
Yeah, so you can find me on pretty much every social media outlet, except for I'm not really on Twitter, but I'm mostly on TikTok and Instagram. And then anywhere music is sold, you can hear my music. We can put it in the description below.
Yes.
My name, I'm ButtRflY, but I don't spell it like how you'd spell the word butterfly. So we can put it in the description below because everyone gets tripped up with it. Go check out my latest song was called You Give Me.
It's so good.
My darkest, if you like a more dark and like menacing vibe, go listen to Fly Away From Me. You'll love it.
Oh my God, it's so good, you guys. Her music is fucking fuego. So go listen to it. Anyway, thanks for joining us.
For having me. I had a blast. And I'm so excited to talk about some paranormal stuff next.
I know, we're gonna get right into that. You guys don't know that because to you it's gonna come out on Tuesday and Thursday, but to us we're getting right into the shit. So anywho, bye guys.
Bye.
Stay tuned for the full music video for You Give Me.
You give me power.
Bye.